This episode is part 2 of an earlier episode that I did with Adam Roberts, a Cadillac engineer. If you haven't seen that episode, I would recommend going back and watching it before this one. How is being a mechanic for a rally team different from being a mechanic for an IMSA team?
Everything but the nuts and bolts is different. Really. Obviously, you have the construction of the car is very different, but ultimately, a good mechanic should be able to work on IndyCar because a good mechanic, ultimately, it's nuts and bolts. And if you understand how a car, the vital systems of a car works, you can work on any car because the form of the pieces is just different. So obviously that's minor, but everything else is very different. An IMSA weekend, first of all, you're working in one location at an IMSA weekend. You're either under a big canopy or in a garage. So you kind of have a nice workspace. We even lay out this nice flooring called kiwi tile when we're under the canopy. We build this structure, and it's a lot nicer than a lot of people's garages. So it's really nice. So you're working in one location over multiple days. And sometimes those days are very long, but if everything goes to plan, they're not, unless it's specifically, obviously, the 24-hour races. That's a long day. For those races, we always have night practice. When we have night practice, that's a long day. Rally, it's always a long day. No matter what, and it might be days. It literally days. So rally is very intense over a shorter period of time. So you're only at a rally event, maybe 1 to 3, big event, maybe 4 days. But the 4 days is really just kind of probably a travel day because it's far from you or something. Really, they're never longer than 3 days. But those 3 days are intense. I mean, you are running, the car is running, gone for 8 to 16 hours. And whereas in IMSA, you're always around the car. Yes, the car's out on the racetrack, but you're right there at the racetrack. You're in pit lane. It's never far from you. And anytime the car is not on the track doing what it does as a race car, it's in your possession, under your canopy, or in your garage. Rallying, the car is gone from you most of the time. You know, you get to a rally, and you go to your service area, and your service area is where you set up your little tent that you do the service on the car. And some events, that service location changes, so you have to be very mobile and flexible. A lot of these service locations are in grass fields, gravel lots, or snow. And with the rally, you have your car ready, the car starts, it goes away, it does, several stints, which is a leg, and then it comes back for a service. It's gone at a leg for a few hours. So you as a crew, you set up your tent, you're just hanging out, relaxing for a few hours. Maybe you go into the little town to find a cafe, get some coffee or something, and then the car shows up. And once a rally starts, you're only allowed to work on the car for a said specific amount of time, and those are your service intervals. So car goes away for a leg. You as the crew are not allowed to work on that car until it comes back to the service area. Once it comes back to the service area, they have predetermined the amount of time you're allowed to service that car. And it may be anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on where you're at in the rally. Typically, what they do is you start the rally, you have one service that's maybe 30 minutes, And then you have another service halfway through, that's an hour. And then you have another 30-minute service. That's 30 minutes to do everything you need to do to this car. If it's a mud, gravel stage, you've got to completely clean all of that out of the wheel wells. Sometimes you have to change suspension if you're changing surfaces. With rally, the abuse the car goes through, you have to be very thorough and literally just inspecting the car, checking tightness of nuts and bolts and things like that. So rally is short, intense bursts. IMSA is more of a prolonged, exposure to it. And then, like I said, again, very different environments. Rally, you're in a forest, basically. IMSA, you're at a racetrack. So
IMSA is much more contained than rally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So where all did you travel for these rallies?
So everywhere, a lot of places in Canada, everywhere from British Columbia to Quebec, so essentially coast to coast. A lot of places here in the States, and then the team actually even went down to Mexico City, outside of Mexico City, and did the WRC Mexico event 2 years in a row. So a lot of places. Canada was always a big favorite just because it's so picturesque there. Vancouver, British Columbia specifically, there was a ski resort we went and did a rally at, and that was always epic.
What is the biggest difference between a snow rally and a normal weather condition?
It's a lot colder, it's a lot wetter. So I mean, really, you're not preparing the car much different for that event versus your standard gravel or mud rally. Maybe a little bit different tires, but then other than obviously the elements, and especially with that, the terrain, typically with the snow rallies, we're in more mountainous terrain. So traveling around and the logistics of those events is more challenging, but it's not that much different.
What is the weirdest experience that you've had as a mechanic?
We were at a race in Canada. This was a touring car race. Maybe 2017, 2018. And we were racing a very new generation Honda Civic. It had just come out pretty much as a street car, and the race car was a street car with race car pieces put on it. And we had an issue. We got on a little crash in practice, and we needed a front bumper cover. And the manufacturer, Honda, they didn't have a spare bumper cover with them because the car was so new. Parts are hard to get when cars are that new. So we needed a bumper cover, and there just happened to be a fan parked in the fan parking lot that had the model year of Civic that we needed a bumper cover from. And we somehow, through team contacts, was able to get a hold of this fan, and we ended up using the bumper cover off of their car on our car for the race weekend. And then at the end of the weekend, we gave it back to them. So that was I'm sure I could come up with a better story than that if I thought about it more, but that's a good question. There's so many. And I'm sure I'm just, missing a lot of them.
So you mentioned that obviously the Le Mans event is a much longer day than a typical IMSA race. So what is the biggest difference, going from IMSA to WEC?
Well, so we do the 24 hours of Daytona with IMSA. So we do have a 24-hour event. But Le Mans a whole different experience. Daytona's somewhat similar in the fact of we have the Roar, which is 2-3 days of testing before Daytona. We do almost spend 2 weeks in Daytona, which is kind of like what we spend in Le Mans, but it's just different. Like the amount of Daytona, you spend 2-3 days testing, and then you rebuild the car, and then you race. But Le Mans, there's so much more that goes into it. The amount of infrastructure and equipment when you're literally sending a race team halfway across the world and you're investing everything that the race team is, you take 0 chances. So for Le Mans, we went with one full race car, a spare race car, and 4 sets of spare bodywork. That's not something we would normally do for a race in the States, but it's because we're traveling halfway across the world and we don't want any reason or any chance that this event is going to fail on anything that's in our control. So whereas like you go to Daytona, we get all of our stuff set up and load in, as we call it, in half of a day. You go to Le Mans, that takes 3 days. You're building a whole back half of your garage. You're setting up, you're spending 2 weeks there. So you essentially set up an entire workshop at the location at Le Mans. So there's 3 days of just preparation just to begin working. And then once you begin working, with it being a WEC event, and we normally run an IMSA, there's a lot of differences about the car. Little details to the body work. The way the series does BOP is different. The scrutineering system that monitors all the data and everything on the car is different than IMSA. So we have to change all of those electronics over. We have to put WEC camera system in the car. We have to add all the little wickers and little body differences to the car. That's different from IMSA. So once you spend your 3 days of work to get set up, then you're spending 4 days of getting your car ready. And also you got to remember this is a car that we haven't seen in a month because it's been on a boat crossing a big ocean to get there. And in that month, there's been updates and changes. So there's a massive amount of work and effort. Days that are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. days for 3-4 days in a row. And that's just to get your car ready to then finally go to tech. And tech isn't just at the racetrack. Tech's in downtown Le Mans. Tech is a whole day experience. The car gets transported all the way to downtown Le Mans in the morning. You as a team travel to downtown Le Mans. You parade the car through downtown Le Mans and you go through all the tech checks and there's all these fans there and they're looking at the cars before, this is a whole week before the race even begins. And then you have your 2 days of testing, and then sort of like Daytona, you completely rebuild the car, and then you have pit stop competition day, and then after that it's a car show, and then you start getting into your official practice days, Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday you don't have to go on track, but you have all of your final preparation. And again, with it being such a big event, you're double, triple checking everything, going over every little detail of the car. Everything is to the absolute best that you can do in every area of the team. So the amount of effort that goes into those events is immense.
So IMSA also sometimes races on street circuits. So how does the challenges change on a street circuit?
That's an interesting one because street circuits, obviously, car wise, they add a big element. You're dealing with bumps, sewer covers, walls that you immediately hit if the driver makes a mistake or something goes wrong with the car. So you always are at higher risk of having a crash. uh, the abuse to the car in certain circumstances is higher, especially the high bump tracks. You got to think about the floor on these cars. It hits a bump, they don't like hitting the ground. But really, where the biggest difference is from the team logistics point of view. When you show up to a proper racing facility, there's a flat, big paddock with these garages. It's meant for these race teams to come with their big rigs and set up and take all this area up to be able to run the race car. Street circuit is not that way. We're shoved in the parking lot for the park, or there's some interesting ones like Montreal, you're in a parking lot in the park on the island. Miami, you are literally just outside of the Miami Dolphins stadium. Long Beach, you're literally in this little parking lot. Where Long Beach? No, Long Beach. Long Beach, you're in a parking lot surrounded by buildings. You don't even really know where you're at. You just know you're in Long Beach and the racetrack's over there, but you can't see it. And you also have to cross 3 bridges just to be able to get to where your car's parked so you can go back to your hotel room at night. And you also can't use Apple Maps because half of the streets are closed because it's a street race. So really, street circuits from like a team logistics point of view, like it's a whole new element. And then, a lot of these streets, they're not necessarily closed the entire time of the event. Some of these streets are opening back up for a set amount of hours for traffic to be able to use them when we're not on the racetrack. So from team perspective, it's a really big difference. From car, not so much. We always prepare it to take a lot of abuse. For the street circuits, there's definitely some differences, and knowing that the floor and certain aspects of the car are going to take more abuse. So there's thought gone into that. But that's really about it.
If you could own any car in the world, what would it be and how would you change it?
So right now, and it has been for a long time, because I really haven't had the luxury of having a fun car in a while. Unfortunately, my love for working in racing has come at a sacrifice of having a home, and I basically have a Honda Civic that gets me from point A to point B because I'm always on the road working. But I have really wanted lately a 69 Chevy Chevelle. And have you ever seen Fast and Furious movies?
Yes.
Okay, so the beginning of Tokyo Drift. I forget the character's name, but I want to say it was a Monte Carlo, but I want essentially the same thing. I want a Chevelle with a full roll cage, a big block with some Goodyear slicks on it, just completely rust patina body, but pure performance, muscle car, look, kind of Trans Am style. That's what I really want right now.
What advice would you have for someone who is wanting to be where you are?
Passion. I know that sounds simple and easy, but ultimately that's what got me where I'm at. What I mean by that is you can't necessarily cultivate passion, but if you have the passion and you really know you have the passion for something, and especially if it's this, you can overcome any of the obstacles that so many people will say are going to come along the way. Passion is the ultimate fuel for work ethic and everything like that. So if, if I were to give any advice to somebody who wants to do something like I'm doing, like I said, there's a lot of sacrifices that come with it. So if you don't have the passion for it, it's probably not going to work out for you. There has to be that passion for you to make those sacrifices, and also what it takes to do this. Not only the sacrifice of being gone from family and long hours and a lot of work days potentially, but especially with this team, like I said, this is a professional, high-level sports team. Everyone there is working towards perfection. There is absolutely no, this is good enough. It is everything you can do, the best of your ability, always. Whether you have 5 minutes or 5 hours, you use that time and do the best you absolutely can at anything you do. So having passion really helps with that. And then with that passion, don't let, it's so easy to say, but you just got to keep going. Don't let the hard times get you down. You can be emotional about it, but get over that and keep moving forward, because if you have the passion for it, it will pay off. The hard work will pay off. So if I can give any advice, that's probably the best I can give.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Adam.
You as well, Brynn.
I think that's about all for this episode.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. I've been Brynn Patton. That's Adam Roberts, and we'll see you.